projects involve teamwork, innovative thinking, problem solving, and communication. STEAM work also helps prepare us with skills that we will need in the future.
We also learned about the design process while completing this project. The first thing you do is ask a question in order to solve your problem. Our problem was that we had to build a robot that would move. So our question was, how can I build a robot to move a short distance? After that, we brainstormed our ideas and chose the best one. Then we made a plan and created our robots. After that, we tested them out and made improvements where we needed to. We tried our robots out on different surfaces to see if friction affected it and changed the weight of the objects pulled to see if that made a difference.
In science class, we studied forces of motion, and we learned how objects move and how things like friction or balanced and unbalanced forces can affect that movement. We built and programmed robots that can pull an object over a short distance. We changed the weight on the robots as well as the surfaces that they moved on to see if that would change how it moved.
We used Lego WeDo kits to build our robot and an app to program it. Here is what our robot can do.
So we have a working model to show you. And the students built that working model and they coded it, they programmed it themselves. And it's physically going to be right there with you. While they're setting up, I just want to show you a couple of pictures because this is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade using these Lego WeDo kits that they told you about. And I want to show you 2 real short videos. One basically is the reason we do this. So as I'm playing this one, keep an eye on the student on the right. Tell me what you guys did. What does it do? All right. And how did you do that? How did you follow? All right, let's see if it works. So watch the boy on the right. All right, so now? So that's the best reason for any of this, if you ask me. And, I mean, they're 8, but listen to this description about friction and forces. Okay. Oh, you got things vertical? Yeah. Okay. And now why are you doing it on the carpet now instead of the floor? We want to see the friction makes. All right, let's see. Take a look at the girl on the right as well. Oh, you're going to show me on the floor? Nice, let's see it. Oh, you're right, I went faster. So they know their stuff. All right, you guys ready? So this was what they built. Their job was to build a robot that will pull something over a short distance. So they built it using directions in an app, but they had the freedom to change things. Some groups changed tires. Some groups, well, there's a cyclops with one eye. But this is what they built. They wrote the program on the app to make it go. Did you guys turn on the robot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, turn it on is always important, right? Good to go? All right, and this is what it can do. Do you want to tell them how you had it? Thank you, everybody.
All right, moving on. Thank you so much. That was awesome. I loved it. And I'm very impressed. I do not think, even with detailed instructions, I could make a robot pulls. And, you know, credit to all the students and to you as their teacher for being able to facilitate that type of learning. Seems like it's very detailed, but the students are learning a lot. So I'm going to open it up to the board if you guys have any questions for the students or would like to.
I just want to
Yeah,
say,
go ahead.
I always say it's my absolute favorite part of the Board of Ed meetings. But you guys are, I just was so shocked you were in third grade and you're not only reading, like everything you were just reading up there, I was shocked at your reading level, plus that you're able to program and know how the app works, and you're able to get up in front of all these people, plus there's millions watching right now live. And you were amazing. And I just want to thank you so much for your bravery for coming out and doing that, but I loved it.
Anyone else have any comments, questions for the students? Go ahead.
I don't know if any of you guys have watched BattleBots on television, where they've got the bigger robots, but I had children who were involved in robotics. I've always had an interest in it. I've seen WPI from a university level and have been up there on those bots. I saw Kingswood Oxford on one of the bots this year, bringing it even closer to Connecticut. I can say whether I'm on the board or not, and you guys are going to have a number of years before you get to that point, but if you guys get to a point where a robot is there, we will find stickers to put on those robots with Berlin High School's logos. I can guarantee that. So keep on doing it because it is a great technology and thing to bring to the table. There's so much that can be done with it. It's fantastic.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you so much. It's obvious that you guys are learning a ton and having fun using those skills. So I'm happy you guys all came out tonight. We are going to move on to the special recognition. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Benigni to talk a little bit about this special recognition this evening.
We're very fortunate tonight to have members of the Elks that have sponsored an Americanism essay contest that we had over 190 students participate at the middle school. And we'd like to invite those Elks members to come forward and present those students with an award this evening. So we have with us this evening the Elks president, Paul Tez. Second vice president is not here this evening, but we do have the Americanism chairman, Mark Persin, a former board member, to present the award to our students.
Good evening, Superintendent Benigni, Board of Education members, administrators, school support staff, parents, and most important of all, the award recipients tonight. With me tonight is, as Superintendent Benigni mentioned, is Paul Tez. He's the president of our Elks. I'll turn over to him in just a minute for some comments, but I would just like to talk a little bit about the Elks, first of all. We believe in giving back. We believe in youth activities. Besides the Americanism contest, we do drug awareness. We do a soccer shoot. We do a hoop shoot and various other activities for the youth because we believe in giving back to the community. One of our logos is Elks Care, Elks Share, and we firmly believe in that. And there's a lot of other charitable organizations we do give to. And one of the other ones that we really work hard for is our veterans. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the essay contest. Each and every year there's a requirement that's come out by Grand Lodge, and we receive a letter from Grand Lodge out of Chicago, Illinois. And this contest starts at a local level. And I'm just going to briefly go through this letter that we get. The theme this year is, what does it mean to love your country? And we got this letter back in, believe it or not, late July, early August to start preparation for the 2021-2022 program. And the Grand Exalted Ruler, who basically is the president of the entire Elks through the entire United States, which consists of 2,300 lodges and about 850,000 members, Said, I am pleased to announce that members of the Grand Lodge Fraternal Committee have selected the theme, What Does It Mean to Love Your Country, for the 2021-2022 Grand Lodge Americanism Essay Contest. The contest starts with the local lodges, progresses through the district and state levels, and end up naming our national winners at the Grand Lodge session in Atlanta, Georgia in July of 2022. This is a very important patriotic contest that gives school children in grades 5 through 8 the opportunity to express views on their pride in America. Nationally, first, second, and third place winners in each division will receive bronze plaques. Many lodges, districts, and state associations also offer different types of awards to their winners, and that's what we're here to do, start at the local level. So when the national finally names the first, second, and third place winners, they actually go to the National Convention in Atlanta, Georgia. The Elks really push this. In order for this contest to even take place, it takes a lot of work in the background. And at the time, I was working with Superintendent Benigni and got his full support to go ahead and push this contest. I shouldn't use the word push the contest, but have the students have the availability, and if they wanted to do so, participate in this contest. And we as our committee at the Elks took about 6 hours to read all these essays. And I picked just out of the 6 finalists, I just took 2 out of the package, and they were just so good, you know, I don't even know whose they belong to, but I'm gonna read 2 of the essays to give you some type of an idea how hard these students worked for this essay contest. This first one here is from Division 1. It's a 5th and 6th grade essay. What does it mean to love your country? There are many reasons I love living in the amazing United States. There are so many different types of freedom. There are also many ways to volunteer for what you think is important. I am so thankful for this great country. There are many different types of freedom. For example, we have freedom to believe in what we want, what we don't all have to believe in, because we don't believe in the same thing. Another example is we have freedom of speech. So if we want to be heard, we can speak, and we speak for what we think is important. Also, we have freedom of choice. We have the freedom to choose our own paths and destiny. This country also allows its citizens to vote for who they want to be in charge. There are so many ways to volunteer and help in our community. For example, we can volunteer to support women's rights because in the past women were not heard or valued, so this gives the opportunity to be heard and valued. We can also volunteer in wildlife conservation and to protect our community. Another example of volunteering is community development. Community development is when people come together to address the problems that they think are important. Like there is a person who can't walk upstairs, so they come together to raise money to make a ramp. There are also people who help out homeless shelters by donating food, clothes, and other needed things. In conclusion, there are so many reasons I love living in this amazing United States. I am very grateful for the different types of freedom and volunteering. I'm very honored to be part of the great and amazing United States. This is from the 5th and 6th grade division. It's an amazing essay. The next one I have is from the 7th and 8th grade division. What does it mean to love my country? Does it mean to love and respect everyone living in our land? Does it mean to love the freedom that was given to us? Does it mean that we should see our country as our home? Love is a deep affliction for something or someone. It can have so many different meanings. Loving our country could be respecting our people. Everyone cannot be the same. Who we're on the outside doesn't matter. We are all different and we should be treated equally for who we truly are. We all live in the same country. We live in peace and freedom. That is something we should appreciate. We, the people, should not take our freedom for granted. We were given this freedom at the cost of lives of others. However, with their sacrifice, they were able to make our daily lives better than those who don't have much freedom. Accepting our country as our home is a way of loving our country. The feeling of peace, unity, family, and love is so pure and cozy. We, as the people living in this land, should be grateful for the opportunity of having such a gift like this. Love is such a complicated word. To love our country, there could be an endless amount of reasons. Those reasons could be cherishing our citizens, appreciating the freedom that was given to us, or loving our country as our home. Our country is a very good example, and it's an ambitious place. We, the people, have dreams and goals to accomplish. We should not take the gifts that were given to us for granted. We should always love our country. 7th and 8th grade essay here. The criteria for writing this essay, again, there's 2 divisions, 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade. The essay is not to exceed 300 words. It must be typed or handwritten, and it had to be submitted by, I believe it was the right after Thanksgiving, the first week of December. And the forms had to be filled out, and everything was just done. It was amazing. So that was the criteria where we're at. Before we present the awards to the finalists in both 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade, I would like to introduce our exalted ruler to let you know what it is. It's actually the president of the club over at New Britain Elks 957, Mr. Paul Tez.
I'd like to thank the members of the Boards of Education, parents, guests, and evidently the millions of people out there. I was on my way. I picked up my son from school. I live in Newington, and I told him that I was coming to the Berlin High School today to present these awards. And he's like, "How come I'm not getting my award?" I said, "Well, you were the second child to turn in your essay, and the judge said, you know, your essay was cute." But they wouldn't elaborate. So, you know, we had, I think, 202 total submissions, and that's phenomenal. You know, what Mark did to pull this off, to give us, you know, these many essays to read was truly amazing. And it's just one of the many youth activities we push. You know, a lot of parents think we're just an old man's club or whatever, and that's, you know, a misconception. It really is. And we really, you know, like I said, push for the youth. You know, this is one major program, and I'm very proud that we had 202 essays this year. We just completed the DARE program, too, where we had 299 posters submitted from the New Britain Board of Education. And I would love to be able to combine both boards of education next year to, you know, maybe get 600, you know. That would be a daunting task for everybody involved in the process, but I think it's just a great opportunity, and especially to reward all the young ones that did a great job. I mean, this is a deep thought process, and you just see these, you know, wonderful minds and what they're working at and what's going on in there, and how they, you know, truly love to be an American. So, thank you. And without further ado, I think we've got some awards to present.
First, we're going to present the awards to the Division I finalists. Each student who was a finalist will be getting a certificate of participation, and also a $50 gift card for their hard work, and just a little bit something that we do. So first of all, in Division I, Palin D'Amico. Stay up here afterwards. That's for you. Gina Lease Morales. That's for you. And Molly Bardalis. Did I pronounce that right? Molly's not here? Okay, we'll give that, I'll turn this over to Superintendent Benigni for the presentation. In the Division II, Michelle Liu. Did I pronounce that correctly? Ella Beatty. And I believe our last recipient had moved, Adam Westman. Am I correct in saying that? Or is he? Oh, you're here. I thought you moved. Somebody told me you moved. Okay, great. You stand over here. We gotta get somebody to take a cell phone picture for us. Again, I would like to thank the award recipients. We're waiting to hear back from district to see where the judging is, and once we get some type of confirmation, I will notify Superintendent Benigni on the where the essays stand. Again, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the support that we had in this essay contest, and everybody else that gave us our support. Yeah, if we could.
Thank you so much. We'll try to get to 600 next year.
Let me give that to Molly.
Absolutely will. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming out. It was great seeing you again, Mark, and congratulations to all the student recipients. There are cookies in the back, on the back table, and we understand if families want to leave, that's okay. We will not be offended. It's a school night, and you probably want your cookies, and you can always live stream it, or you're more than welcome to stay with us for this wonderful evening we have planned. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Let's give them one more round of applause. It's always nice having students come out, and that, it's a good reminder to set the tone for our meeting of why we do what we do, and I love having our students here. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Benigni for board member appreciation.
This is Board Appreciation Month, and I think that the people that sit to the left and right of me volunteer their time, and they don't get paid for their time. They do this out of service to the community and the belief in the school district and our students. And I think that over the past months have been a very trying time, not only for the Berlin Board of Education, but for Board of Educations across the United States. Throughout the pandemic and through some of the various issues that are in society right now, it's been a difficult time for the board. And I just would like to commend all of you for being on the board and for your passion, purpose, and pride to use the Berlin logo for doing what's right for the students of Berlin. So thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
In the bag behind you, there's a small token of appreciation from the school district for you. So thank you again.
Bitcoin token?
I wouldn't say it's a Bitcoin
It's a
token. It's
Bitcoin.
not that big, Tim.
Come on now. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to committee reports and correspondence to the board. So I'm going to turn it over to our student reps all the way at the other end of the table.
This March 23rd is our school-wide SAT day that is sponsored for the grade 11 students. And then during that, the grade 10 students will be participating in Career Day, where they can learn about different career options they might pursue. The boys basketball team is currently playing in the quarterfinals of the state tournament against the #1 seed, Colby. The last I heard, they didn't win, but that was a valiant effort. Our business club, DECA, had a few winners in the virtual Connecticut State Career Developer Conference. Olivia Salina and Alyssa O'Leary placed first in the conference. John Michael DiDomenico and Garrett Fallon placed second, and Derek Heckler also placed in the top 5. So the top 2, the first and second teams have the opportunity to go to Atlanta for this nationwide conference. And finally, last Friday, English 9 students had the chance to see Holocaust survivor Andy Sarkany present here in the auditorium. So they had read Eli Wiesel's Holocaust memoir and were able to ask questions and discuss with Sarkany.
And this past weekend, Upbeat went to Camp Woodstock, and there they had opportunities to improve their leadership qualities and to make stronger connections with those in Upbeat through the different workshops during the weekend that were run by alumni, BHS staff, and most importantly, the students. And then we want to say a big congratulations to all the students and staff who put this year's musical Into the Woods together. They did a great job bringing the show to life, and all their hard work really paid off, resulting in a great show. And finally, on Wednesday the 16th at 6 p.m., Rho Kappa Social Studies Honor Society is inducting their new junior members. And that's all we have for tonight.
Thank you. You had a lot to report. I heard the Upbeat weekend was excellent, so. Beautiful weather, too. Yeah, I don't think so. All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to committee reports. Do we have any committees? No. Yep, go. Jamie, would you like to share?
Sorry. The curriculum committee met before this Board of Ed meeting tonight. We had the privilege of meeting with Jean Borup, I hope I'm saying her name correctly. She's the K through 12 district coordinator for ESOL, is that right, Aaron? Which is the English, supporting English learners, and then multilingualism. I can't remember exactly what ESOL says, and I don't want to say it incorrectly, but it's about supporting English learners in our school district. We have about 100 students. Jean is absolutely phenomenal. The work that her and her staff do is just really, it's very interesting. Most of our learners are in kindergarten, I think 85% she said, and then the other ones are older children, but phenomenal program that they have. So Gina and I were lucky enough to meet with her and talk about that. We also talked about the calendars, more specifically 23, 24, and talked about a couple changes, which would be changing one of the PD days from a Friday to a Tuesday, moving it around for February break, and then adding a professional development day in December, which I think we, Aaron had talked about wanting to do that for next year too, but that's not on the agenda to vote on for this evening. So, and Gina and I were in agreement, I think, to that. So that's what we discussed.
Thank you. Tim?
Yes, so just before this meeting, we had a committee meeting to discuss some policies. We are voting on 33 policies later on this evening, but that apparently wasn't enough. We've got 9 more that we're going to get to talk about at our next meeting. A lot of the same kind of thing in terms of the language and the changes. A lot of it is procedural and legislatively required. The one thing to note from there is policy 6172.61, credit for online courses. It's the 9th policy in that list of policies. There were 2 optional components at the end of it that we on the committee both feel, as does the superintendent, that the optional components are not necessary for the policy that we are going to adopt at our next meeting. So when you're reviewing that policy, that's our recommendation. If you have comments or questions, certainly direct them to Julia, and we will be able to talk about them.
Thank you. Sure. And I think that's it for committee reports. So moving on to the CREC report. Do you have anything to report?
No, I think we meet Thursday, but everything's A-okay.
Perfect. And I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
We have a couple correspondence to the board. Dear staff and Berlin Board of Education, thank you so much for the condolences and beautiful arrangement. Both brought my family and comfort during this most difficult time. Sincerely, Amy Marchetti, BHS social studies teacher. The second communication is from Lisa Steimer, Senior Staff Associate, Professional Development and Communications at CABE. Enclosed, you will find certificate and date plate recognizing the Berlin Board of Education winning the K Board Distinction Award for the spring and fall of 2021. We hope you're able to share this with the meeting at your March Board Appreciation Month. So we are at that month, and I wanted to share with all of you that we did get recognized. I believe this is our 10th year in a row being recognized, so congratulations to all of you.
Thank you. And I'll just provide a brief update on our Board of Ed retreat. That was yesterday from 3 to 8 p.m. So first off, I would like to thank the board members and the superintendent for giving up 5 hours of your Sunday to work to drive our board forward. I think the work that we did yesterday was productive and purposeful. You know, and thank you everyone for participating and your enthusiasm. I would like to say I think we have the opportunity to work together collaboratively to be a cohesive board, lay a solid foundation. We had some consultants come in to work with us to lay down. Tom Mooney came in, him and another attorney from Shipman and Goodwin, they went through board rules and procedures and policies and our role as a board member, and it was really fun. They gave us a bunch of different scenarios. We weren't sure what the answers were, so we had a good time with that. And then we had another consultant come in for the later part of the half who started talking with us, you know, really understanding our why as to why we're on the board and developing an equity statement as a board. We started that work. We scheduled a follow-up day to have another workshop and continue the work. This work takes some, you know, a significant amount of time, and it can't just be done overnight. And so I can confidently report back that the board members, you know, last night were thoughtful, highly engaged, and participating at a level that's going to really drive us forward to serve the students in Berlin. So thank you all for that. Does anyone have anything they want to add about the retreat yesterday? We're going to go to 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes for audience of citizens, guys. We're not going to change the policy. So we did briefly discuss it. No one really stood out and said that the policy about audience of citizens needs to be changed, but we said, let's just extend it to 3 minutes. No one really had any, you know, dispute around that. And so since, you know, there was no disagreement on that, then, you know, we don't need to change the policy and bring it to a vote. But I know I said I would report back on that. And I know I also said I would report back on the standings of the Equity and Social Justice Committee, but we don't have an answer of the direction we're going in right now because we're determining that as a board, and it takes work and it can't be done overnight because then it requires a lot to backtrack. You know, this was our shot to really come together and work collaboratively, and I would say we did that. So thank you everyone for your time yesterday. I know giving up a Sunday is a lot. And then being here again this evening, and then everyone seems to have committee meetings this week. So thank you all. All right, moving on to audience of citizens. So the members of the Berlin community are encouraged to share their thoughts with the Board of Ed and are invited to do so during this segment of the meeting. When appropriate to do so, members of the board and administration may respond to comments. However, in consideration of those in attendance and an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussions may need to take place outside of the meeting setting. Residents speaking during this portion will have 3 minutes, and they need to state their full name and address. So we're going to open up to you guys. There is a list, but you know, there's not an overwhelming amount of people, so as you see fit. No, you can just go up and say it, yeah.
Sarah Patel, 65 Sabona Road. I'm here once again to support the hard work of addressing equity in our schools. Thank you to Julia, Tracy, Melissa, and Gina for replying to my emails, and especially to Julia and Tracy for taking the time to dig into this with me via phone conversation. I greatly appreciate your time. I wanted to share a recent positive experience with my son. One day, 2 weeks ago, He came out of school so excited he was carrying a new book. It wasn't library day, so I was cautious and confused. But he started telling me about this book as we walked to the car, and it was titled Mars Patel. Mommy, it's our last name. It's a book about an Indian boy like me. I said, where did you find it? And he said, Miss Bodette said one of the teachers found it and thought of me. This is a great example of equity. It didn't take away anything from another child, but made my child of color feel proud of his heritage, like he mattered, and that he was seen for his entire self, not a whitewashed, colorless version. He could see himself in the character of Mars Patel. Representation and color matter. We can no longer pretend that this isn't true. It is wrong and hurtful to children of color to insist we view the world through a colorless lens. That is not possible. We see color all around us. We identify things by color, our hair, our eyes, and we need to become comfortable identifying people positively by the color of their skin. As a mom of children of color, when I hear, I don't see color, my heart breaks a little each time. When you do not see my children's color, you are denying the multifaceted, stunning fabric of what makes them who they are. You are denying a part of them that is essential to their being, their skin. And when you say this, you are continuing to cement the fact that you believe there is something wrong with a piece of them they have no control over. Similar to their eye color or their hair color. We need to see color. I challenge each of you to see color. We need to begin to move Berlin Public Schools in a direction where every teacher, staff member, administrator sees and celebrates color. Thank you so much for starting that work yesterday. As a mom, I can tell you how much it means to me to hear that you are taking the things that we're bringing to you and you're taking them seriously and you're really beginning to address them. Thank you. Please continue to do that work. And if I can be part of the solution, you have my number. Thank you.
Nick, could you, okay, just really quick, I would like to clarify something. I know I said we're not responding, but this was discussed last night at our retreat, and I think it's appropriate and the board would appreciate if I state this. So as the board chair, it is my responsibility to respond on behalf of the board. The board is told to forward their emails to me and I respond as one voice. If it's directed at someone as an individual, because there's that relationship, but that's just board best practice. So by me responding, I was responding on behalf of the board. I can be more clear next time and state that. You know, I guess we just learn as we go, but I do want to let you guys know that the emails that were sent, I was responding because that's just our protocol. So I do want to address it.
Rachel Rochette, 61 Ellsworth Boulevard. First, thank you all for the work that you started yesterday. I truly appreciate you all spending that time. I know it's time away from your families, so thank you for doing that. One thing that we have heard kind of in this whole equity discussion from a couple of board members is that this really isn't meant for the board. It's supposed to be a larger community issue, which absolutely, as a community, we all need to take equity seriously. But I do think there is a place for diversity, equity, inclusion from a board standpoint. And as your role as a board, one of the things that you do, as evidenced by tonight's agenda, is to create policy and to vote policy in. And when you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, that in itself is a policy. That policy can then be given to staff across all of our schools so that when they are looking at curriculum, when your curriculum committee is deciding what is going to be happening, it is viewed through the lens of DEI. I think by setting a policy at the board level, you are guiding your teachers. We have great examples of when it works, it's great, but it's hit or miss if there's no policy for teachers to look at. So I strongly encourage you to create a DEI policy that for then your three pillars that you've talked about, curriculum, budget, community, all of those things you can look at through the lens of DEI. That is your role, that is your place. So I strongly encourage you to take that into consideration as you continue this work. The second thing I just wanted to mention, I know the kids have left, but doing their robot, I think that the Berlin First robotics team competed this last weekend, and I don't know how they did, but hopefully we'll see some of these young kids joining that robotics team. So thank you again.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to approach the board?
Aurora Corderville, 19 Timberwood Road. Hi. I just have a really quick question, Julia. So I know yesterday there was a whole bunch of conversation about audience of citizens, and you had said that 2 minutes, it's great that the 3-minute thing is awesome. I was just wondering if that also meant that you would limit how many people can speak on the topic. Okay, great. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. You guys are awesome.
And I'm not responding and doing it back and forth back, but I'll just restate what I stated about the policy. So our policy is 3 minutes per speaker, 3 speakers per subject, at a maximum of 9 minutes per topic, at the discretion of the board. So at any point, the board can say, at this meeting, we are going to do X, Y, or Z, but, the sentiment of the members yesterday was it's important that we hear people, and, we talked about some strategies if our meetings are going long and people are saying the same things. But at this point, we are not revising the policy. And if at some point, a different board decides to, then that's the direction we shall go in. Anyone else like to approach the board?
I know it might not exactly be appropriate, but I think this is the most appropriate time I can figure out to say this. But I saw Tracy there as well, but we lost a member of the Berlin community with Nick Pepe the other day. I didn't want to say too much with all the kids in the room, but Nick was an outstanding individual for the Berlin community, for myself personally, for a lot of people that knew him, teacher, coach, just a fun person to be around. And I think back to my many hours with him in the classroom and on the court and on the football field and everything else. And I think that the greatest thing was my children were also able to experience his personality as a substitute teacher at McGee School as well. And so it's a big loss. With retirements, I know Mr. Del Judas is retiring, and I think back to Mr. Russo and that generation. We lost a lot of good people. So just wanted to make a comment that Mr. Pepe is definitely missed.
Thank you, Adam. I'm glad you spoke up on that, and I do think it's appropriate.
And just a caveat real quick, if you're watching, ask your kids about him, because almost every single student from kindergarten all the way through has had him at some point for a substitute. And I know my kids, it didn't matter, like just fairly recently, he was at McGee and he taught a Spanish class, which if you knew Mr. Pepe, that probably wasn't the best place for him. And my son came home going, nope, we still learned history. It didn't matter what it was. And you could always find him when I used to substitute at the schools in the teacher's lounge with a paper, reading all the time. And my son would say he brings the paper everywhere and reads. But he was a favorite substitute of many of our young children right now, so.
Thank you. You want to add?
I worked with Mr. Pepe on his team for a number of years. Nick Pepe is a personal friend, and what he's given to the Berlin Public Schools and his subbing since retiring. And he didn't just sub at the middle school, he subbed, as I said, at the K level, also at the elementary. He had just a strong belief in students and in people in general. I also coached with him for 6 or 7 years on a coaching basketball. And, I think he's had and will continue to have a mark on many students moving forward. And even as was said, even as a substitute teacher, he still was a character that everyone remembered and appreciated. I can't say enough about Nick Pepe and as a person and as an educator and what he's done for the students of Berlin and the community. So thank you.
Thank you. certainly happy you stopped me there, Adam, because it was definitely appropriate to do so. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
To approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? Second. So the motion by Melissa, second by Carrie. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the vote carries 9-0. Moving on to new business. We are going to talk about the revised YMCA lease agreement with the Berlin Public Schools. So am I going to turn that over to Mr. Cugno?
Yes, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Cook.
Evening, folks, board members. You recall that we did, excuse me, the board last summer reviewed and approved leases for the YMCA to operate a daycare in both McGee School and in Hubbard School, and also a lease for the Transition Academy to lease a former YMCA building down in Main Street. We just have a couple of quick things that had to change. The initial agreements were approved, like I said, past summer. However, due to some necessary revisions, locations of dedicated space in the facilities themselves, the level of renovations that were needed, and some other terms and conditions, there's just some slight revisions being done to the leases, which we ask you to approve tonight. First of all, let me say that these leases and the revisions have already been approved by the YMCA. We're looking forward to tonight's approval from the Board of Ed, and also the town of Berlin is going to take them up tomorrow night. They've also been all reviewed by the town's Corporation Council and the Shipman and Goodwin on our behalf. And again, just to remind you, it's a daycare facility at McGee, one at Hubbard, and then Transition Academy. Very quickly, I know you received in your packages a copy of all the revised leases, and what I tried to do is I highlighted the places that there were any, looking like there was any revision at all. I'm not here to go over the entire lease, certainly, nor all the revisions in total, but what I'd like to try to do is just summarize how quickly, what these things are. One is term. The term of a lease, obviously, is how long the leases are going to be for. Our originally were 7 years with a three-year option, which would make them a total of 10. They are now 10-year leases with an option for additional 5. There's a reason for that, which I will go over at the moment. So the term has been expanded. The classrooms that are going to be taken changed a little bit. In Hubbard, it's generally the same classroom, which is number 8, about 1,000 square feet. The classrooms at McGee did change. We originally were planning on putting them near the middle of the building, near the offices. We found a much better space, and now they're going to be up in numbers 215, 216, and 219, which is to the rear of the building, and they'll have their own drop-off and their own access in and out, which we think is a much better situation. The third thing that was changed is the cost estimates, and realistically, most of these changes are because of the cost estimates. We originally had some soft cost estimates on what we thought it would put together the daycare center, along with the YMCA. Of course, we had different facilities and classrooms at that point because they did change, but most importantly, it went from an estimated cost of between $80,000 to $100,000 to one that is now around $300,000, which is the reason why we have a longer term now, because in order for the YMCA to be able to recoup some of their investment, because the YMCA, of course, is paying for all the renovations. So that's one of the changes in the leases, and we had to talk about some termination issues, so it becomes more and more fair for not only the Y, but for the Berlin and for the town of Berlin and for the Board of Ed, which was done very, very well. There's a number of ways in and out in this, and way everybody can get away from a fair situation or have what I consider a tremendous situation for the next 10 years. So that's the differences and the revisions in the McGee lease and in the Hubbard lease. If you don't want me to go through anything in depth on the highlights, I will leave it at that. As far as the third lease, which is the lease between the Board of Ed and it's the Board of Ed and the YMCA for our Transition Academy, there were just a few minor changes. First of all, you should know that occupancy has already started, as you know. they allowed us to start the lease and sign this lease as of August 25th, which means we've really been under the lease for a number of months, 7 months. That's written in here. There's one section that says the improvements could not be completed at the same time that the occupancy got taken down at 362 Main Street. There's something in this lease that says that during the time that the Transition Academy occupies the space, that the improvements weren't done, so the YMCA didn't get any benefit from their improvements. We had to put in there a section that said, well, when the improvements do get completed, if there's any inequities and anything that has to be negotiated back relative to the transition lease, we could do that. Works very, very fairly, very frankly, because we've now been in the facility for close to 7 months, and we haven't been paying any rent at all. So it's very much of a partnership, leases, as you can imagine. One of the minor things in that lease, although it is called out, is instead of us providing extermination at the 362 Main Street, the landlord is going to be doing that. We have taken over snow plowing, and I'm glad to say that the town of Berlin has agreed to do the snow plowing for us. So those, in essence, are the summary of all the changes here. If you look at the highlighting, it's as little as I could possibly highlight to make sure that we were at least notifying something on the leases. With that, I'll stop unless somebody has anything specific they'd like to ask me.
I will entertain a motion, and then after that second, and then we can open it up for discussion. Does anyone like to make a motion? Adam.
I'll move to approve the revised facility use and rental agreements between the Town of Berlin, Berlin Board of Education, and the Meriden New Britain Berlin YMCA for daycare operations at Catherine M. McGee School and Richard D. Hubbard School, as presented, and authorize the superintendent of schools to execute such agreements on its behalf. Also to approve the revised lease agreement between the Meriden New Britain Berlin YMCA and the Berlin Board of Education regarding the educational and training facility for the Central Connecticut Transition Academy at 362 Main Street, Berlin, Connecticut, as presented, and execute such agreement on its behalf.
So we have a second.
Second.
So motion by Adam, second by Tim. All right, we can open it up for questions or discussion.
Just a question. So, Jeff, I know that extermination has been added. So, just looking through this quickly. So, all other maintenance of the building is on whom? That's all on.
Are you talking on 362?
I'm sorry, 362 Main Street.
362 Main Street. Normal, well, maintenance could be a lot of things. Normal maintenance, landlord maintenance from a regular commercial lease, which this is taken care of by the YMCA.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Questions or comments?
That hasn't changed at all, Adam. That's basically, it's been in there from the original.
I have another question, I'm sorry. There is parking that takes place at Webster Bank.
Yeah.
That's not a question.
We have not taken into consideration in this lease anything to do with Webster Bank space. We do have parking on the 362 space, and we do have parking for vans and for cars that have to go in and out of there. We also have, of course, parking on the street. But there's nothing formally negotiated outside of this lease at this point.
Okay. The only reason why I ask is I've seen some people parking in the Webster lot and walking around.
Yeah.
People park, they park.
I think that Webster lets people go in and out of that lot a lot, downtown for a lot of situations, yes.
Yeah, just thinking liabilities and what, everything like that. I want to make sure that, well, my kids park there when they work at Box Bistro. I mean, I understand that lot is available. Right. I just want to, is there any designation when people are either dropping off or picking up to say this is where you're supposed to park? Are we letting people know where we're pick up or drop off?
Most of anything that gets dropped off or picked up on that Transition Academy site down there are people that are just dropping off their children in the front, and they get walked in by a lot of people, and there's people right there. It's very few. It's not a big line of cars by any means. Okay, and at that time of day, there's not a lot of traffic down in downtown on Main Street. So they haven't had a problem there. But what they do is they just pull up in front of the building and let off. Okay. As far as parking, again, There's parking on the street, there's also parking on the side of the building, there's also parking in the back if necessary for people that work for us. I am not aware of anybody permanently parking in Webster Square, Webster Bank.
So we're not instructing anyone to park there?
We're definitely not.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. They are. Okay. I just want to make sure that they are aware of it, and there's no issue there. Oh, okay. So no parking, no banking. Understood. Got it. Okay. Fair enough. I just want to make sure that there was knowledge. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we make sure, but again, they're not noted in this lease at all.
Understood.
You understand the difference?
Understood.
Okay, yep.
Any other questions? We can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 9-0. Moving on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cugno. Thank you for that update. Okay. So we are moving on to the Berlin Public Schools calendar, so I will turn that over to Superintendent Benigni.
We have the adoption budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was missing.
It's going to be brief.
It looks like I'm missing a part of my printed out. So the adopted budget, so.
There's not much to discuss about the adopted budget at this point. Thank you to the Board of Education for voting for it. We had our meeting with the Board of Finance and our presentation a week ago. My understanding is that on Wednesday, the Board of Finance meets to discuss and to vote on what our budget will be set at for next year. So until that time, there's not that much to put forth about the budget that hasn't already been said. So we will wait. I thought that the Board of Finance, the meeting with the Board of Finance was probably the most cordial that we've had in a number of years. I think that there was a level of respect back and forth. There wasn't any yelling. There weren't any rude comments. And fingers crossed that will be a good outcome on Wednesday with the budget. So the discussion was positive. So we're very hopeful.
Great. And now moving on to the proposed calendar. Sorry about that.
I know that the proposed calendar was in the curriculum subcommittee, but the proposed calendar is attached, and based on the Public Act 19-195, which allows the board to set the graduation date and then hold to the graduation date if it's 180 days. The new calendar has a June 7th graduation date. This is 2024 now, so we're talking a few years out. But if you look at the calendar, there's not many other changes to the 24 calendar. I don't know if there's any questions. The calendar is a 23-24 calendar you have attached in Schoology.
So we will make a motion and then we can open it up for discussion. Can I entertain a motion?
Move to adopt the 2023-2024 Berlin Public Schools calendar as proposed and set the 2024 Berlin High School graduation date for Friday, June 7th, 2024. And bless you.
Thank you, Adam. Do we have a second? Second by Carrie. She said it before you, sorry. Okay, now we can open up for discussion. Any questions or comments?
Brian, this is for 2 years out.
Yes.
So it used to be that we would wait to set graduation until like April of the year we were in. And now we're setting it 2 years out.
The new law.
I understand
The new law allows us to do this. And so the thought is that we would put this forth and set it. And if we needed to make adjustments within the calendar after that, obviously, I mean, to say we'll have no snow days and to be done the 7th is probably not as probable based on just past history. But the graduation date of the 7th could remain should the board elect to do it at this point.
Just seems odd to do something like if we were discussing next year's calendar, I would be.
But we usually are always are adopting 2 years out. The only part is the graduation date could change.
We're not saying where the graduation is going to be, just that it's going to be on that day.
No. And it's a belief. If the board decided that our belief is not to set the graduation date and that students should go 180 days based on the number of snow days, we don't have to set the graduation date early like this. But if the belief is that we set the graduation date, and if there were 5 snow days, these students would graduate prior to the 180 days of their senior year, which is now okay with the state. It wasn't previously.
Another small thing in this day of political correctness, I'm not sure that still referencing the spring holiday is best to still listed as Good Friday, which is clearly a religious holiday. You may want to come up with another.
I think years ago, the state looked at a regionalized calendar, which was a big flop. You know, I have numerous meetings with the state and with various districts trying to get this regionalized calendar where districts would have the same vacations and aligned and so on, and it never really materialized.
Reference to Good Friday. Instead of Good Friday, call it
A very good Friday.
something else.
Again, a board decision on that.
Just something to consider.
For those of us having a kid graduate, now I know and can reserve that weekend for the big party, right, Adam? So we got a heads up, we're good.
But I think also with All Night Grad, that's one of the bigger components that we hear from every year. With booking it and planning it is very expensive, so, you know, locking that date in to make sure we have the best opportunity for the students.
And you know, Matt brings up a good point, though. When you look at the calendar, the only religious day that's noted as a holiday, or, you know, a day off, is Good Friday. I mean, that's a good point to look forward. Should we just count that as, I mean, but the thing is, it doesn't stand with the April vacation. So.
Understood. But
In other districts, though, there's other holidays that are listed as days off. So, I mean, it's kind of been
It's what the day is.
and that's really what the issues with trying to do a regionalized calendar, were that some districts were representing different religious groups were very set on certain days, so they offered a floating day. They tried to have it never worked because districts were very set in what they had for their, you know, their calendars for a number of years.
Anyone have anything else they would like to add? We could always just give all the teachers PD on that day. Just kidding. They'd love us for that. Sorry. All right, guys, so we have any more discussion? All right, we can move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 9-0. All right. I think we certainly have something to consider moving forward. Okay, we're moving into the policy revision, the second reading and adoption. Superintendent or Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add about all of these policies?
I'm sure.
I can read them all into the record if you'd like, please.
Please.
Yeah, no. Did you, or either of you, I guess, receive any commentary or questions or pushback on any of these policies?
I did not hear from any board members regarding any of these policies. I know I read through them a few times. I don't have any questions regarding them. I don't know anyone else.
I just found one thing, but you can correct me if, I noticed on the bylaw, the 9050.1, the word changing from chairperson changed to president. But then I noticed on the bylaw 9085, it's still listed as chairperson.
It's a great catch.
I'm sure, you know, consistency, if changing it, right? If changing the name president, then changing it.
Should be consistent. And that's something that. So we can look at making those changes and adopting with that change of changing where it says in 9050.1 where it says president, then when we get to 9085, instead of changing, we would change chairperson throughout that policy to state president.
Anything else from anyone?
Bylaw 9001, we talked about committees, and I think yesterday during the retreat, we talked about the potential for adding a policy committee. Doesn't keep us from adopting this as is, but still I'd like to keep that on the agenda for future work to determine whether or not we would like to add that as a committee.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I think that should definitely go on to our next agenda so we can continue this conversation. And thank you for reminding me of that. All right. Do we have a motion?
I move that the board adopt the revised policies and bylaws listed above as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So motion by Melissa, second by Adam. Any further discussion? Okay. All,
Do we need an amendment for the clerk?
I was gonna say, maybe just say,
Just to say what the
as amended in the motion. You wanna just restate the motion maybe, to say as amended?
At the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Move that the board adopt the revised policies and bylaws listed above as presented, as amended.
Perfect. And I'll still second that.
so motion by Melissa, second by Adam. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 9-0. And then I can turn it over to Mr. Oakes to talk a little bit more about the last item on the agenda for the first reading.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said in the committee meeting report, you've got 9 additional policies to take a look at here. All of them are procedural, legislative, et cetera, related type changes, grammatical stuff, nothing new and jarring, with the exception of policy 6172-61, credit for online courses. There are 2 optional clauses listed at the end. At this time, the ad hoc committee for policy review is recommending that we do not incorporate either of those clauses into the policy, and that it would just stop without that. I'm going to pull it up just to say, nope, that's not what I want. This is what I want. Yep, I'm looking. So effectively, it would end at the bottom of page 2. Page 3 and page 4 and page 5 would not be included in the policy. That's our recommendation from the committee. But as I said, if anybody reads this and says why or no, we absolutely need this, or has any questions about it, please bring those forward to Julia for further discussion.
Thank you. So we're not taking any action on this tonight because it was the first reading. All right, we have one last item. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Do we have a second? So motion by Adam, second by Carrie. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the meeting's adjourned at 7:19.